the iron rasp of a file against bone, the scent of oil, sweat, and rotting breath in a candlelit chamber where screams are muffled by thick stone walls. You are seated on a slab of wood, your hands tied behind your back, not for cruelty, but for mercy. A man with trembling fingers dips a bronze hook into a pot of boiling water. He does not meet your eyes. He does not need to. In this ancient world, pain is not the cost of healing. It is the treatment itself. You feel a toothache. In the time before anesthetic, before hygiene, before understanding, that ache was a slow march toward agony. If this story makes your jaw clench or your heart ache, tell me, would you have endured the cure or lived with the pain? Subscribe if you'd like to wander again through forgotten shadows like these. The fire is dying. You can hear it, the gentle sigh of wood, collapsing inward, the faint whistle of heat slipping through the cracks in the mud brick walls. The night has settled around your home like a woolen shroud, thick and unmoving, save for the twitching of frost at the edges of the thatched roof. Inside, silence reigns. No footsteps, no voices, only the soft creak of dry timber and the steady beat of your heart behind your ribs. But beneath that rhythm, something else, a throb, dull, patient, relentless. It begins behind your molars, where the warmth of soup has long faded and the bread you chewed still lingers between your teeth. It is not pain, not yet. It is the promise of pain. A murmur in the bone, a warning whispered from the shadows of your own skull. You shift on the woven mat, pull your blanket tighter. But there is no comfort now. Pain does not wait for daylight. If this story awakens something in you, a shiver, a memory, a question, consider subscribing or sharing. Every forgotten whisper deserves to be heard. Could you have lived in a world where pain was the first sign of death, not disease? You live in a place where seasons arrive like omens, sudden and unkind. Winter has crept in under the doorframe, leaving its cold fingers curled around your ankles. The clay floor is dry and cracked from the hearth's fading warmth. Beside you, a sleeping form, your sister, perhaps, or a cousin, breathes slow and steady. The quiet is sacred, but within your mouth it is broken. You press your tongue against the sore spot again. You've done it a dozen times today, as though prodding the pain might somehow understand it. But it only answers with more, deeper now, radiating like ripples in a dark pool. There is no mirror in this home, no way to see what hides inside your own body, only the feeling of something wrong. A tenderness near the gum line, a tightening in your jaw. When you chew, you feel the crunch differently, not in the bread, but in the root. You do not know the word abscess. You do not know infection or bacteria. What you do know is that something is swelling inside you, and that no one has answers for it. The morning comes in pale grey light. It reveals nothing, not outside, where the world is still crusted in frost, and not inside your mouth, where the ache has grown thicker. You eat slowly, pretending not to wince. The others notice, but no one says a word. Everyone in this house has known pain. They know its language. They do not interrupt it. Later, you gather kindling near the edge of the village. The cold bites through the sleeves of your tunic, cloth worn thin by years of use and smoke. Each step jostles your jaw, sends a tremor through your spine. You hold your head a little higher to ease the pressure, but it only shifts the pain elsewhere, like water finding its lowest point by midday. It is constant. The pain no longer whispers, it sings. You remember stories told beside this very Fire of men who went mad from such things, who clawed at their own faces, begging for relief, only to be buried with blood on their hands. You remember the old woman who lived by the well, the one who held her cheek and wept without words until the day she vanished. A spirit took her, they said, but you know now. It wasn't a spirit, it was a tooth, a simple, ugly, rotting tooth. You return home early. The fire is low again, but no one has yet gathered to stoke it. You crouch beside the embers, pressing your fingers to your face as though you might push the swelling back in. It burns behind your eye now, travels down your neck like a slow river of heat. In the corner, the family goat chews noisily on straw. Even that sound scrapes against your nerves. You want silence. You want to lie down. You want more than anything for the ache to stop. But in this time, in this place, pain is not the sign of something to be healed. Pain is simply endured. There are no doctors in your village. Only a woman with a bundle of dried herbs tied, with sinew who mutters to the gods of soil and bone. She speaks of worms that burrow into the tooth, of spirits lodged in the jaw, of curses passed from one generation to the next. She will see you tomorrow, perhaps, if the river isn't frozen and the path isn't blocked. Tonight, you will simply suffer. You lie down again in the dark. The mat beneath you scratches at your skin. The blanket smells of smoke and salt. And your mouth pulses with the rhythm of something ancient, something cruel. A reminder that long before medicine, long before mercy, there was only pain and the body that bore it. You close your eyes, not in sleep, that will not come, but in surrender, because when the ache begins, there is no turning back. There is only the long, bitter road to survive it. The path to her dwelling is lined with bones. Not human, you hope, though you do not ask. Tiny bird skulls dangle from strings strung between crooked sticks, their hollow eyes turned skyward as if in eternal prayer. Clusters of herbs, long dried, sway like brittle wings in the breeze. The hut leans slightly to one side, built of packed clay and rushes, roof thatched in grass that carries the scent of old fire. A crow watches from the rafters, unmoving. You stand at the threshold with your jaw clenched and your heart tight, waiting for permission to enter. She knows why you have come. They always do. Inside, the air is thick with smoke, not from wood, but from resins smouldering in a shallow bowl near the door. Frankincense, maybe, or something older. The smoke coils around you like a shawl, clinging to your clothes and skin. Your eyes water, though not from the scent. It's the ache again. It has crept up into the side of your skull, stabbing in time with your heartbeat. You swallow, but even that motion is painful. She gestures silently to a woven mat. You sit. The woman speaks with a voice that crackles like the flames beside her. She does not look at your face. Instead, she gathers things. Stones worn smooth from rivers, charred bark, petals pressed flat between animal hide. She lifts a carved wooden bowl and begins to grind. The sound is rhythmic, soft, almost hypnotic. With each motion, she chants, not words you recognize. Syllables shaped like breath and bone, older than any tongue you've known. You close your eyes, perhaps from fear, perhaps from trust. She dips her fingers into a grey paste, thick and bitter, with the scent of clove and ash. With surprising gentleness, she presses it into your gums. It stings, then burns, then cools. The pain shifts, not gone, but distracted, like a dog momentarily lured away from its prey. You exhale, long and slow. For the first time in days, you feel something close to stillness, but it does not last. Soon the throb returns, deeper now, as if insulted. The healer does not seem surprised. She nods, as though confirming something she already knew. She reaches into a basket and pulls out something glistening, a worm, writhing, pale and slick. You recoil, but she holds it toward you reverently. "This," she says, "is what lives in your tooth." The toothworm, she places it into a clay pot and sets it near the fire. Whether it's meant to draw out your pain or simply to frighten it, you cannot say. She lights a new resin, black, oily, pungent, and waves the smoke toward your face. You try not to cough. The air thickens, the shadows lengthen, and the pain, ever cunning, waits behind it all. That night, you chew herbs until your jaw aches anew. She instructs you to sleep with your head to the east, to wrap your face in linen soaked in goat's milk and honey, to hum a low note until the spirits settle. You obey. What else is there to do? In the darkness of her hut, you hear others arrive. A boy with a swollen cheek, a mother carrying her daughter, limp from fever. All are received with the same wordless rhythm. Herbs, chants, salves. Pain briefly tamed, then reborn. At dawn, she hands you a small bundle. Powdered charcoal, cloves, dried mint. Instructions are murmured again, soft as ash. You nod, though you remember only some. The rest will fade, just as the paste on your gums will wash away, just as this lull in your agony will not remain. You leave her hut changed, not in health, but in understanding. The toothworm, the chants, the sacred smoke, they are not lies. They are scaffolding, comfort. They are stories wrapped around pain to make it bearable. And even if they do not cure, they listen. They witness, but the ache walks with you still. By midday, it has returned to its full strength, a dull hammer behind the bone, striking in rhythm with your breath. You bite down on a strip of bark, hoping to dull it, but it only grows worse. The pain has grown familiar now. It knows you, and it will not be tricked by flowers or smoke. You pass others on your walk home. Their eyes flicker toward the cloth wrapped around your face. Some nod, some do not. They all know what it means. In the market square, a man sells dried figs and salted fish. His laugh is wheezy, his mouth missing 2 teeth. You wonder how he lost them, if he tore them out himself, if they fell like leaves from a dying tree. At home, the fire is low again. The goat sleeps in its corner. Your sister stirs a pot, the scent of boiled barley filling the air. You eat slowly, pressing the herbs against your gum with every bite, hoping they'll work this time. They don't. You lie down again beside the flames, heart pounding, breath shallow. The pain is relentless. It does not spike or fade. It looms, steady, patient, like a drumbeat in the earth tomorrow. Perhaps you will seek another cure, another chant, another hand to soothe what cannot be seen. But for now, you press your fingers to your jaw and whisper to the gods of root and bone, "Please, not tonight. Please, not this way." The Nile moves like liquid bronze beneath the pale morning sun, slow and ancient and watching. Reeds whisper at its banks. The ibis calls. A veil of heat wavers above the sand and in the distance. Beyond the funerary temple's stone threshold, incense coils skyward, fragrant and bitter, clinging to the linen wrapped around your arms. You are no longer a villager, but a servant of the dead, an embalmer's apprentice in the land of divine kings and crumbling tombs. The pain has followed you across time. It waits now behind your tongue, where a rotten molar throbs with silent vengeance, dull but insistent. You say nothing. Of it, in this world, pain is not shared. It is swallowed like river dust, bitter, choking, constant. You tie a cloth over your mouth, not to protect yourself, but out of reverence. The body before you is that of a priest, old and sun-dried, with gums shrunk back to reveal a row of worn, cracked teeth, yellowed, broken, ground flat from decades of chewing stone-laced grain. You lean in to examine the damage. The molars are eroded, the gums shriveled. In death, the mouth is still telling its story. Your master leans beside you, his hands already oiling the skin with myrrh and palm resin. He murmurs an old hymn under his breath, calling on Anubis, the god of embalming, to guide the soul of the dead. But your gaze remains on the mouth. The teeth have survived what the flesh has not. Later, you work in the embalmer's chamber, dim and dry, where salt-cured bodies lie wrapped in cloth. It is here you first hear the story, not from a scribe, but from another apprentice, his voice hushed as he mixes natron and ash. They say the pharaoh himself had a tooth bridge, he whispers, gold wire, ivory pegs. You imagine it, a mouth full of God's wealth, clenched against rot and time. But even the divine bled and suffered. Even kings clutched their jaws and groaned in the night. You dare to ask your master, days later, when the others have gone. He nods slowly, scraping bark resin into a jar. They tried, he says. Gold bands, linen soaked in honey, sometimes even a carved tooth fitted into place with copper thread. Did it help? You ask, he does not answer. The pain in your own mouth has grown sharper, a knife hiding beneath your gum. You can feel the swelling now, tender and burning. You press your fingers against your cheek when no one is looking. The pressure brings a brief relief, then worse pain. You do not tell anyone, you keep working. In the burial chamber, you help carry a noble woman's body down into the earth. Her sarcophagus is painted with stars and prayers, but it is her skull. You remember when her mouth falls open as you shift her. It reveals something shocking, a bit of linen, stained dark, packed deep into a cavity. A primitive filling, desperate and failing. Even in death, they tried to keep the ache at bay. You wonder who placed it there. A physician, a priest, a desperate hand in the night. The temple physicians speak often of balance, of Ka and Ba, of humours and breath. They mix poultices from cumin, carob, and green malachite. You've seen patients come with jaws swollen like figs left too long in the sun. Some are treated with oil and honey, others with cauterized bone needles dipped in vinegar. You remember one man, trembling, mouth open wide, while the scribe held his head still. The priest pressed a copper tool deep into the cavity. The scream stayed with you for days. Now you cannot. Open your mouth fully without feeling something shift, something hollow, something wrong. Your breath tastes of iron. At night, you bite a strip of papyrus soaked in date wine and salt, but it offers no comfort. You've tried the prayers, the herbs, the smoke. You begin to dream of teeth falling from your mouth in handfuls, raining into your lap like stones. In the dream, you pick them up, try to press them back into your gums, but they slip through your fingers, slick with blood. One evening, while preparing a minor official for burial, you find his lower molars bound together, with thread and what looks like carved shell. The binding is crude, the gum beneath blackened. Another attempt at keeping a man alive through the agony of his own mouth. The deeper into the tombs you go, the more you find it. Bridges of bone, fillings of crushed barley, tooth sockets packed with resin and linen. Desperation made art. In enamel still, the gods remain silent. One day you feel heat behind your jaw, not from the sun, but from within. The swelling is now visible, red and taut. You are no longer able to eat solid food. You chew bread soaked in broth. You drink water warm from clay jars and pray it will cool the fire inside you. A senior embalmer sees your face and says nothing, only offers a rag soaked in acacia. You hold it to your cheek, trembling. You are beginning to understand the truth. They did not fear death here. They feared pain, and pain lived in the mouth. It rotted kings and slaves alike. It burned in the gums of farmers and gnawed the sleep of temple dancers. In this land of gods and gold, no one was spared. Teeth told the story, silent, cracked, and screaming beneath the silence of the tomb. You finish your work for the day. You light the oil lamp, its smoke winding into the rafters, and you lie on your mat in the embalmer's quarters, listening to the wind beyond the walls. Your mouth aches, but your silence aches more. The sun hangs heavy over the Aegean sky, bleeding warmth across white stone and olive leaves. You are far from the tombs now, in another place, another body walking beneath marble columns that throw long shadows across the tiled courtyard. The scent of pressed olives and sheep's wool lingers in the air, but you can barely breathe past the throb in your face. A tightness has formed behind your right eye, pulsing with a fever that no water will quench. The city hums around you, sandals scraping over limestone, voices echoing through public baths, the distant bray of donkeys, but for you, the world has become narrow and dim. The ache behind your jaw now hums like a string stretched too tight. Each heartbeat is a hammer blow. Each step grinds your teeth together. You try not to wince, but the pain is spreading, uncoiling through your temples and down your neck. You make your way to a man called Diodoros, a physician of some repute, though his home looks no different from any other. A shaded portico, scrolls stacked on stone shelves, and a basin of clean water near the entrance. The smell of wine and vinegar hangs thick in the air. Inside, it is cool and quiet, save for the occasional whisper of papyrus fluttering under a ceiling fan woven from reeds. He does not look surprised when you arrive, one hand clutching your swollen cheek. He has seen it before, many times. He nods solemnly and gestures for you to sit on a low stool carved with figures of centaurs and dolphins. You lower yourself slowly, swallowing hard. The pain intensifies with the shift in posture. Diodoros examines you without words. He presses gently against the swollen part of your jaw. Your breath catches a sharp, involuntary gasp. He nods again and steps away, reaching for a small case carved from cedar wood. Inside are tools, none of them designed for the mouth. Blades, hooks, a slender needle. He speaks softly. The humors are unbalanced. The excess must be released. You know the word humors. You've heard it whispered in the agora and mumbled by elders after too much wine. Blood, phlegm, yellow. Bile, black bile. For rivers within the body, ever shifting, ever threatening to overflow. Pain, they say, is a sign that the tides have turned. Diodoros rolls up your sleeve. You blink in confusion. Your jaw aches, not your arm, but he does not explain. With deft hands, he ties a strip of linen above your elbow, tight enough to swell the veins. You look away. A cold breeze slips in through the doorway. And for a moment, you think of the Nile again, of resin and linen, of bones. The blade is small. It sings quietly as it moves through skin. You feel the warmth before you see it, your own blood, red and thick, spilling into a terracotta bowl. You are told not to clench your fist. You do. The pain in your jaw blossoms again, sharp and unforgiving. After a few minutes, he removes the cloth and wraps the wound with a mixture of crushed figs and cobwebs. The bleeding slows. The ache does not. You are instructed to rinse your mouth with vinegar and sea salt, a ritual repeated daily. You obey, though it makes your eyes water and your gums sting. You are given a small wax tablet with instructions to eat only soft lentils and goat's milk for 5 days. You nod each night. You lie beneath a linen sheet, your jaw throbbing to the rhythm of distant lyres and laughter from the neighboring courtyard. You cannot join them. Chewing is torment. Smiling hurts. The salt from the rinse opens raw wounds. Along your tongue, on the 3rd day, the swelling reduces slightly, but the pain remains. It has shifted again, now sharper, more focused, like a needle buried deep within your flesh. You return to Diodoros. He shakes his head. The blood has been balanced, he says. The rest is for the gods to decide. He offers you a poultice, made of ground barley and crushed mint, bound in sheep's wool. You press it to your face, though it brings little comfort. The fever comes and goes like a tide. One evening, you sit beside a small spring at the edge of town, watching a fisherman carve bones from his catch. He smiles at you, his teeth yellowed, a few missing. You smile back, or try to. The motion sends a lance of pain through your jaw. You turn away in your sleep. You dream of your mouth falling open, of words spilling out but no one listening. The gods are silent, the stars cold. Your tongue swollen with secrets. By the 7th day, the bleeding wound on your arm has crusted shut, a dark scab like a coin stuck to skin. But the ache in your jaw persists. You no longer believe in the for humors. You no longer believe in figs or vinegar or balance. You believe in the pain. It is the only thing that remains. You rise, wrap your face in a scarf, and begin the walk to the edge of the city, to the place where another kind of healer waits, not with scrolls, but with tools, not with prayers, but with iron. You do not tell anyone where you are going. You do not say goodbye. You walk alone, with the weight of your tooth like a stone sealed beneath your skin. The road turns to dust beneath your sandals, the city's marble fading into cracked dirt and soot. You walk past olive groves left unharvested and stone walls etched with the wind's dry breath. Your face is wrapped in wool to hide the swelling, but there's no hiding the way you move, slow, deliberate, cradling your jaw as if it were something fragile and dangerous. You've come to a place where medicine does not follow theory, where scrolls are replaced with soot, and healing comes by force. The blacksmith lives at the edge of the village, not a doctor, not a priest, but a man who wields fire and iron and, when summoned, pain. His forge breathes like a beast. Smoke coils from its mouth, thick and bitter, and the clamor of iron on iron rings through the valley like war drums. You step into the darkness of his shop, blinking against the firelight. The air smells of horses, sweat, and scorched leather. He does not greet you. He does not need to. You are not the first to come with a jaw too swollen to speak. You watch as he finishes his task, a horseshoe quenched in oil, before finally turning toward you. His eyes are steady. One is milk white with a burn scar that runs down to his jaw. He gestures to a low stool beside the anvil. You sit, breath quickening. The pain in your mouth has become a living thing. It pulses, it burns, it speaks in rhythms that only your nerves can understand. You would weep if it weren't for the fear, not of the pain, but of what must come next. He opens a wooden chest. Inside, the tools not clean, not sterile, just sharp. Iron tongs blackened by years of use, hooks that curve like claws. A small mallet, its handle worn smooth by 1,000 grips. He chooses the tongs. You stare at them, your heart pounding. He says only one word, open. You hesitate. The tongs are thick, cruel, not shaped for delicacy, but the ache in your jaw has become unbearable. You part your lips, teeth clenched. The moment your mouth opens wide enough to expose the molar, he moves. It happens fast, a blur of metal and motion. He braces your head against the post, one hand pressed into your temple, the other drives the tongs deep into your mouth. They find the tooth with terrifying certainty, and then, with a grunt, he pulls. There is no warning. There is only agony. You scream, not just from the pain, but from the crack, that terrible final crack, as the root tears free from your bone. It echoes through the forge like the splitting of stone. Blood fills your mouth, thick and hot, metallic as the air itself. You gag. He lets go. You fall forward, hands to your knees, spitting blood onto the dirt floor. The pain doesn't leave. It transforms, from burning to throbbing to a void, as if something sacred has been hollowed out of your skull. He says nothing. He returns the tongs to the chest, wipes them on a strip of leather. You sit there, trembling, your head bowed. The pain is not gone. It has changed shape. But something inside you has shifted. Something has broken, and not just the tooth. He hands you a rag. You press it to your mouth. You taste iron and salt and the bitter breath of smoke. Tears slip from your eyes without shame. He does not watch. Outside, the sun is beginning to fall. You stand, unsteady, and reach into your satchel for the small pouch of coins. You offer it. He does not count. He simply nods. You leave the forge, with blood still dripping down your chin. The wind outside is sharp. It stings your raw gum, like knives. But you walk, one step, then another. Your vision wavers. Your limbs ache. But you walk. The village is quiet when you return. No one speaks. They see your face, pale, hollow with eyes sunken from pain, and they know, that night, you lie beside the hearth with a cloth pressed against your jaw. The fire is low. The pain, now dull and empty, throbs in slow waves. But you are no longer waiting. The worst is done. You have crossed a threshold, and in the silence that follows the scream, there is something like peace, a terrible, tender peace, carved from the blacksmith's gift. The morning mist clings to your tunic like the sweat of ghosts. Dawn in the Roman camp is not quiet. It breathes in iron and barks orders in Latin, muffled by the clatter of armor and the smell of wet leather. You are no longer a villager, nor a blacksmith's patient. You are a legionary assistant, trailing the army's long, hungry shadow as it marches toward another conquest. And the pain has followed you. The ache began again. 3 nights ago, a slow throb behind your molar. That has turned sharper each day, piercing through the bitter taste of vinegar wine and the sting of salted meat. The rations grind against your nerves like sand between bone. You chew less. You speak even less. The swelling beneath your cheekbone has begun to show. They've noticed. But the medics in the Roman camp have no time for your pain. They are busy, stitching arrow wounds, cauterizing spear-pierced thighs, lancing festering flesh with daggers and smoke. Their station is a blood-slick tent, the color of sun-dried scabs, with flies swarming over its flaps and bowls of pus-dark water waiting to be discarded. Still, one of them agrees to see you. He is young, but not gentle. His hands are fast, his eyes dull with exhaustion. You sit on a crate beside the butchered remains of a battlefield dressing. He does not ask your name, only grips your jaw in one hand, forcing your mouth open, inspecting the damage with a sharpened stick. His breath smells of onions and fatigue. Decayed, he mutters. No rupture yet, but close. You try to ask what can be done, but he's already rifling through a leather satchel at his feet. He withdraws a set of bronze tools, pincers, a knife with a curved edge, a scoop for scraping. Everything is stained. None of it is clean. Hold still, he says, wiping his hands on his tunic. You do. He begins with pressure, a finger driven against the side of your jaw to locate the root of the infection. The pain blooms instantly, and you jerk back. He scowls and tightens his grip. There are two cures, he says, not unkindly, fire or the knife. You choose the latter. He nods once and calls for another assistant, a legionnaire with wide hands and a calm voice. They bind your arms with leather straps. You are held down like a beast about to be sacrificed. Your mouth is opened with a wooden wedge. Your body shakes, not from fear, but from the knowledge that what is coming cannot be escaped. The blade is dipped in wine. He does not wait for the heat of cautery or the whisper of prayer. He drives the knife into the soft tissue above the tooth and slices downward. The pain is blinding, a white flash behind your eyes, a scream you do not recognize as your own. The pressure is immense, as if the side of your skull is being pried apart with hammers. Blood floods your throat. You gag. The assistant tilts your head forward so you do not choke. The surgeon mutters under his breath, cleaning the wound with wool soaked in vinegar. The smell sears your nostrils. You taste copper and bile. It is over in minutes. The tooth is not removed. Not yet. The swelling must drain first, or so they say. For now, the cut is packed with moss and held in place by pressure. A strip of linen is tied across your head to hold it steady. Rest, he says. If it swells again, we pull. You stumble back to your tent, dizzy, jaw heavy and wet with blood. The world swims. Your ears ring with the rhythm of marching feet and distant trumpets. That night, the pain returns in waves, not as sharp but deep, like the tide beneath a storm. You wake often, mouth dry, tongue stuck to the roof of your mouth. The air is thick with sweat and the scent of rotting. Bandages, in the dark, you hear others groan. Soldiers missing fingers. Boys moaning from gut wounds. Men with shrapnel buried in their thighs. And in that chorus of agony, your own pain feels almost ordinary. You are given a draught of poppy milk the next morning. It dulls your thoughts. You dream of the Tiber, of cool water, of biting into fresh figs without pain. When you wake, you find your pillow stained red, the linen soaked through. But the swelling has gone down. You live. That is all the Romans ask. 3 days later, you are back on your feet. The surgeon sees you again, nods without words. He hands you a leather pouch inside, dried herbs, a bronze pick for scraping the gums, and a small prayer scratched onto parchment. It is not much, but it is something. The legion marches on. Banners flapping against the wind, feet pounding the road. In unison, you march too, jaw tight, step steady, and the pain, it lingers. But it has changed. It is no longer just a curse. It is now a companion, one that speaks of fire, of blood, of the cold discipline that comes with enduring the unbearable and walking forward anyway. The heat arrives before the sound, the soft lap of sandals on carved stone, the murmur of sacred chants echoing beneath open archways. You are no longer a soldier, no longer an assistant. You are reborn under the sun-soaked canopies of the subcontinent, where healing is not shouted in commands but sung in whispers. The temple stands near the edge of a small village in ancient India, nestled among lime trees and brick huts, streaked red with ochre. It breathes incense and old prayers. The courtyard is filled with jasmine and smoke, the smell of sandalwood dancing with dust. A bell chimes softly above, calling not gods but healers. Here, the barber is not just a barber. He is the healer of mouths, the caretaker of pain. And today, you are his patient. You sit cross-legged on a woven mat, a strip of turmeric stained, cloth wrapped beneath your jaw. Your head feels too heavy for your neck. The pain, a deep, throbbing ember in the left side of your mouth, has returned again, sharper and stranger in this humid heat. Every swallow is a trial. Every moment is lengthened by the low hum of suffering that pulses behind your ear. A boy offers you a pinch of camphor and clove, instructing you to chew slowly. The bitterness numbs the edges of your tongue. It helps, a little, but not enough. The healer arrives with no fanfare. A young man with silver-threaded hair and quiet eyes, his hands stained with ash and oil. He sits opposite you, and there is no rush. Here, pain is not to be torn out like a weed. It is to be softened, soothed, sung to sleep. He examines your face with his fingertips, pressing lightly at the base of your jaw, feeling the heat beneath the skin. He nods once, then opens a clay box beside him. Inside, slivers of shell, honed to sharp edges, cotton soaked in neem oil, threads wound tight with horsehair. He begins with prayer. The chant is slow and low, drawn from his chest like smoke from a dying flame. The words mean little to you, but the cadence stills your heart. There is reverence here, not for the tools, but for the body. He lights a small brass lamp filled with ghee, its flame flickering in the warm breeze. He dips his hands in rose water, closes his eyes, and presses a bit of turmeric paste onto your forehead, not to heal the mouth, but to calm the soul. Then he begins. With one hand, he holds your chin. With the other, he inserts the shell blade into your mouth, angled with care. There is pain, sharp, immediate, intimate, but it is not violent. He scrapes gently at the gum line, dislodging pieces of the rot. You taste blood, and earth, and something that might be memory. Your eyes water, but you do not flinch. The blade withdraws, coated red. He places it into a bowl of burning neem leaves, letting the smoke carry away what was removed. Then comes the rinse. Warm water steeped with tulsi and rock salt. It burns, but only briefly, like a wound being forgiven. The healer does not speak. He sings, a low song older than the temple stones, rising and falling in a lullaby meant not for children, but for broken men. You feel your body slacken, your shoulders fall. For the first time in days, the ache recedes just far enough for you to breathe deeply. He packs the gum with cotton dipped in a bitter, dark solution. You do not ask what's in it. You simply close your eyes. The treatment is not over, but you are given time. Others wait. Men and women with mouths half open in quiet pain. A child cradling her jaw. A mother beside her, whispering the same chant. The healer will see them all. He will sit beside them, one after another, as though time is measured not in hours but in tenderness. When he returns to you, the sun has shifted. The light now filters through the trees in golden shards. He places a small bundle in your hand, a pouch of crushed herbs, 2 clean cloths, a folded prayer. You bow, not out of custom, but out of gratitude. You leave the temple slowly, your steps light despite the soreness still pulsing within your cheek. The pain is not gone, but it is quieter now. It has been heard. You walk past the Nime trees and into the village again, the scent of spice and smoke filling your lungs. Around you, life moves at its own rhythm. Women drawing water from a well, a boy chasing chickens, the sound of a flute from some unseen corner. Your jaw still aches, but it no longer feels like a punishment. It feels like something ancient, something shared, a pain passed through generations, soothed not by force, but by hands that know how to touch without breaking. And for now, that is enough. You climb the stone path in silence, each step a whisper against the mountainside. The air is thin here, sharp with pine and dust, and the sun glints off the marble steps worn smooth by centuries of offerings and barefoot devotion. You are no longer in the lowlands of herbs and soft chants. You are ascending into the realm of the gods, to Delphi, the navel of the world, where mortals bring their questions and leave their pain. Your jaw pulses with every heartbeat. The swelling has returned, despite the oils, the chants, the careful scrapes. No remedy has offered more than momentary relief. Each night you dream of teeth crumbling in your mouth like wet clay, of red pools blooming on your pillow. You wake with your fingers pressed to your cheek, whispering the names of gods you barely believe in. And so you have come here to ask the oracle what cannot be answered by medicine or time. The temple clings to the cliff like a ribcage around a sacred heart. Smoke curls from unseen chambers, heavy with laurel and goat's blood. Pilgrims wait in silence beneath white stone columns, their eyes downcast, clutching tokens in trembling hands, carved figurines, silver coins, locks of hair, all hoping to bargain for a glimpse of the divine. But you have brought something else. Your tooth, or rather, what will soon be your tooth. The ache has reached its crescendo. Talking hurts. Swallowing brings tears. You've wrapped it in cloth, pressed it with wine-soaked figs, even bitten down on bone to distract from it. Nothing works. It pulses like a second heart, a cruel one. A priest leads you through a dark hallway beneath the temple, past flickering torches and carved walls that sweat with the breath of centuries. You are told the Pythia is ready. The oracle, the voice of Apollo, she waits for you in a chamber carved from the mountain's ribs. Steam seeps up from a fissure in the stone floor, rising like breath from the underworld. She sits on a high stool, draped in linen, her hair tangled with olive branches, her face painted in ash and gold. She says nothing at first, then, in a voice not entirely her own, "What offering do you bring?" You do not speak. You kneel and reach for the smooth, round stone you placed in your satchel, flat on one side, heavy in your palm. You grip it tight, tilt your head to the side, and bite. The first strike fails. Your lip splits. The second cracks. The enamel The third dislodges the tooth entirely, root and all, torn from the socket with a sound like wet string pulled from a rotted log. Blood pours over your tongue. You do not scream. You simply kneel, mouth open, letting the red spill down your chin, and place the tooth in her outstretched hand. Her fingers close around it. Her eyes roll white. She begins to speak. Not a prophecy, a story she tells of a boy who swallowed a stone and called it pain, of a man who grew teeth in his dreams and woke with blood in his mouth, of a woman who sang her agony into the roots of the earth until the olive trees wept, salt instead of oil. You do not understand the meaning, but the pain dulls, slowly, not because it is gone, but because it has been witnessed. You are handed a strip of linen soaked in something bitter. You bite it, shakily, and let the priest lead you back into the light. Outside, the sun has begun to set. The wind carries the smell of thyme and firewood. Pilgrims still wait along the steps, clutching their questions. You pass them silently, blood still trailing from the corner of your mouth. You do not know if your offering pleased the gods. You only know this. Something inside you was broken and given, and something else, softer, quieter, was returned later. As you lie beside a stream, the stars winking open above you, you press a hand to your cheek and find it hollow, empty. The tooth is gone. The pain is changing. Not vanishing, but shifting, like a shadow, learning how to fade. And you wonder, not if it was worth it, but what it means to suffer just enough to be heard. The alley reeks of smoke and damp wool, a labyrinth of shadows between tall Roman insulae, where laundry hangs like surrender flags and rats weave through the straw-choked gutters. You live here now, not as a pilgrim, nor a soldier, but as a nameless boy in the city's underbelly, where pain is currency and silence is survival. You follow the bone carver through the narrow passage, past broken carts and shuttered bakeries. He limps, his right knee stiff from an old break that never healed. His shop is not really a shop. It is a room beneath a staircase, no larger than a goat stall. Its walls blackened with soot and marked with crude chalk drawings of teeth and roots and pliers. You found him through whispers. He pulls teeth, they said. He makes mouths. For the rich, he takes coins or silence. You had nothing to give, so you offered your hands. He accepted. That was months ago now. You boil his tools in pots of urine and ash. You scrape bone dust from the floor, sew hairline cracks in dentures made of ivory and wax, and hold head still while he works. You have watched men scream and women faint. You have seen teeth yanked whole and teeth shattered into fragments. You have seen more blood than bread. The carver himself is precise, quiet, cruel only when needed. His fingers are strong, his nails black with years of work. He fashions false teeth from oxbone and silver wire, sometimes fitting them into the mouths of senators, wives or aging generals with wine-stained lips. But he also treats the poor if they bring coin or goods, if they beg hard enough, if they don't flinch. You've grown used to the tools. Iron hooks, flat chisels, curved pliers filed from broken blades. None of them clean, none of them kind. The days blend together. You sleep beside a brazier that never fully warms the room. You rise before the streets stir, gathering charcoal and water, grinding soot into ink for marking the gums. Sometimes, the carver lets you assist. You steady the jaw, hold the lantern close, catch the tooth in a tin dish when it finally breaks free. One morning, as rain beads on the tile roofs above, you wake to a deep throb in your own mouth. It begins behind your last molar, where the gum has long been tender. You press it with your tongue. It gives slightly and aches in return. You do not tell the carver. You know how he handles pain. You bury it. But over the next week, the swelling rises like dough. You chew only on one side. You keep a cloth pressed to your cheek at night. You gargle wine mixed with chalk. The pain grows sly, nesting behind your ear, crawling down your neck in waves. One night, after the last customer, a boy whose tooth snapped mid-extraction, leaving the root buried. You sit by the forge and close your eyes. The carver watches you from across the room, sharpening a thin hook on a whetstone. Which side? He asks. You open your mouth. He nods once. No questions, no condolences, only motion. You lie back on the stone table where dozens before you have writhed. The lantern sways overhead. The forge hisses in the corner. He places a wedge between your teeth, forcing your jaw open. You do not cry. You have seen what tears buy in this place. He does not use the pliers. Not yet. Instead, he takes the slender hook, the one meant for scraping roots, and slides it into your mouth. It touches the gum, then the tooth, then the bone. The pain is instant. A silver scream blooms in your chest but never leaves your throat. Your fingers curl into fists. He scrapes once, twice. Blood follows, thick, salty. Familiar, he pulls with the hook, anchoring beneath the root. The motion is precise, practiced. You hear the crack, a soft, wet sound. The tooth gives. He spits into the brazier, wipes his hands. Done. You sit up, dizzy, the world tilting sideways. Blood streams from your mouth. He gives you a cloth, already stained. You press it to your face. You do not thank him. That is not how things work here later that night. While the city sleeps beneath cloud and wind, you lie curled on a sack of rags, the extracted tooth in your palm. It is small, yellow, ugly, but it was part of you. You do not cry. You simply stare at it until sleep takes you. The forge crackles in the dark. The carver snores softly beside his tools. And the city, ever indifferent, ever devouring dreams. Of no one, the fever comes quietly. It doesn't announce itself with lightning pain or blood or screams. It arrives like a whisper, like the hush before a storm, soft, unrelenting, and certain. You feel it in your limbs first, a heaviness that makes your arms useless, your legs unsure. The mornings grow dimmer. The brazier doesn't warm you anymore. You sweat beneath the rags, then shiver. The pain in your mouth has changed. It is no longer sharp. It is deep, dark, pulsing behind your jaw like a second heart beating out of rhythm. The carver says nothing. He looks at you the way he looks, at the cracked teeth of the dying, with the stillness of someone who's seen it before and doesn't need to see it again. He leaves you a bowl of broth and a cup of wine. You can barely sip. Your lips crack. Your tongue swells. You sleep in patches, haunted and shallow. And then she comes, a child, no older than 8, with hair knotted and eyes too wide. Her mother carries her like a bundle of reeds, whispering prayers in a language you do not know. They lay her down on the table beside the forge where you once bled. Her jaw is swollen grotesquely, one cheek stretched so tight it gleams. Her breath rattles, mouth half open, saliva pooling at the corners. The mother pleads, you watch. From your corner, your body aches, your head swims. The carver shakes his head. There's nothing left to pull, he mutters. But the mother insists. She offers coins, her necklace, a loaf of barley bread wrapped in a kerchief. Still, the carver refuses. She will not survive the night, he says. You rise. You do not remember deciding to stand. You do not remember crossing the room. But suddenly you are there, beside her. Taking the damp cloth from her brow, her eyes roll toward you. They are glazed, unfocused. You've seen that look before in dying soldiers, in old men whose mouths had rotted from within. The infection has spread. It is not just in the gum. Now it is in the blood, in the breath, in the marrow. The carver busies himself in the corner, muttering about closing the shop early. You stay with her. You hold her hand. Her skin is fire, her pulse frantic. You hum a song, one you barely remember, from a village, far away and a time before blood and iron. She does not cry. She cannot. At some point, her body begins to twitch. Small, sharp spasms. Her breathing shortens. You wet her lips with a scrap of cloth. You whisper something about the stars, about how the gods need gentle voices, about how her pain is seen. Her mother crouches beside you, shaking. She knows before. Midnight. The girl's breath ceases. No scream, no words, just stillness. The mother wraps her in the kerchief she had offered as payment. She does not weep loudly. She presses her forehead to yours, thanks you with her eyes, and vanishes into the night like smoke before dawn. You sit alone beside the brazier, the flame casting long shadows on the wall. Your jaw aches again, a dull throb rising behind. The molar that was never quite cleaned, never quite healed. You press your fingers to your neck. It's tender. The fever is creeping back. You know what this is. You've seen it now. Not in scrolls, not in temples, but in her infection, the silent executioner. It doesn't come with battle cries or warnings. It sneaks in through the roots of teeth, burrows into the blood, poisons the breath, steals the voice. It does not need armies, only time, a broken tooth, a moment of neglect. The city does not mourn the girl. By morning, the shop is open again. The carver hammers new ivory into a mold. A merchant arrives, demanding a bridge for a missing incisor. A slave is brought in with a jaw swollen shut. The world moves on. You sweep the ashes. You boil the cloths. You tend to the tools. But that night, when you lie down beside the embers, you place your fingers on your jaw again. The skin is hot. The ache is rising. And you know if it spreads, if the fever deepens, no chant will save you. No blade, no bridge. No God, only silence. The wind moves like breath through the trees, sharp, dry, whispering in a tongue that predates stone. You are far from cities now, far from markets and forges, and the taste of iron in your mouth. You are in the north, where the air smells of peat and pine smoke, and the forests seem to watch you with eyes you cannot see. You wear a necklace of teeth, not your own, some human, some not. Boar, tusk, wolf fang, a single molar, threaded on sinew, darkened at the root. They swing gently across your chest with each step. In this place, they are more than ornaments. They are symbols, proof, power. You have become a warrior, or something like it. Among the Celts, the tooth is more than a tool. It is a spirit's anchor, a memory carved in ivory. To lose a tooth is to lose part of yourself. To carry the tooth of another is to carry their strength or their fear. You remember the first one you took, a raider, face painted blue, eyes wide in death. His mouth was broken open by a sling stone. his teeth scattered in the grass like ivory hail. You found one, sharp, jagged, and plucked it from the earth. You strung it around your neck without thinking. The others noticed. They said nothing, only nodded. Now your collection grows. A wolf killed in winter, a bear cub lost in a trap, an enemy who whispered curses with his last breath. You remove their teeth with a bone knife. You clean them with fire and salt. You do not do this for cruelty. You do this for memory and for protection. You meet an elder once, wrapped in fox pelts and silence. Her teeth are long gone, but she wears a belt of molars, a ring of human canines woven through leather, each etched with a line of red ochre. These, she says, touching them, are the only ones that cannot lie. She teaches you how to listen, to run your thumb along the ridges, to feel the grooves like maps, to hold a tooth to your ear and hear not sound, but echo the lingering presence of what once was dot at night. Around fires that crackle with wet wood and meat fat, the warriors share stories of teeth cracked in battle, of men who fought on despite the pain, of screams cut short by a single snapped root. One man speaks of a spirit that lives in the jawbone, feeding on rot. He says if you bury a tooth beneath a tree and return in spring, the leaves will whisper secrets. Another claims to have seen a witch pull wisdom teeth from corpses and grind them into dust for dreams. You do not know what to believe, but you keep collecting. There is comfort in it, in turning pain into ritual, in transforming decay into relic. The necklace grows heavier. Sometimes you feel them tap against your ribs like questions. Sometimes you dream of them, still rooted, still living, still speaking. One night, a boy approaches you, young, silent, his face pocked with windburn and soot. He offers you a tooth in his open palm. My father's, he says. He died with it in. You take it, you add it to the thread. He says nothing more, just sits beside you, watching the fire. Later, as you lie on moss beneath a sky freckled with stars, you run your fingers along the necklace. The teeth are smooth, warm from your skin. You wonder how many of them came from pain. How many were torn in battle, broken in fear, loosened by hunger. And you wonder if someone wears your tooth one day, what story will they tell? The fire crackles low in the hearth, its flames more amber than gold, more memory than heat. Outside, the snow clings to the hills in silence, blanketing the earth in a hush that makes each breath sacred. You are old now. Your hands tremble when they reach for the ladle, and your knees creak with every prayer offered to the floor. But it is your mouth that reminds you of times passing more than anything else. Not with words, but with absence. You have no teeth. Not anymore. They fell out slowly, one by one, as the seasons turned. Some with pain, some without. Some you pulled yourself, gritting a cloth between your fingers, biting down on root bark and firelight. Others simply loosened, wobbled for weeks, then tumbled into your hand like leaves from a dying branch. Now your gums are smooth, bare, pink as memory, and your laugh, once full, once wild, is a ghost of itself, thin, wet, whistling between. Lips that do their best to shape the air without the pillars that once held it. The children laugh when you speak, not cruelly, not always, but with the innocence of those who still believe their bodies are unchanging. They mimic your words with puckered mouths. They ask what it feels like. You tell them the truth. It feels like forgetting. Your food is boiled soft now, barley soaked in goat's milk, yams crushed into ash-grey paste, apples steamed until they fall apart between tongue and roof. There is no more crunch. no more tear of meat. You remember the sound of bread crust splitting between your molars, a sound so satisfying it once brought tears to your eyes. Now, even chewing brings fatigue. You speak less, not from shyness, but from effort. Every syllable is a struggle of lips and breath, like weaving cloth with broken fingers. You hum instead, murmur, let others fill the space with noise. In the village, they say you are wise. They say your silence is sacred, but you know better. You know it is simply easier to listen than to be misunderstood. Once, a trader from the south passed through with a pouch of carved ivory, false teeth, he said, made from boar, tusk, and wire, for the vanity of widows, he joked. You held them in your hands. They were smooth, cold. You gave them back. You are not vain. You are only tired. Sometimes at night you dream of your teeth, not the pain, not the blood, just the sensation of them clicking together, biting into fruit, tearing into roasted duck on a festival table. In the dream, your mouth feels whole again. You wake with your tongue searching the empty gums like a widow reaching for a body no longer beside her. And sometimes you cry. You cry not for what was lost, but for how easily it was forgotten by others. How the village now looks at you as though you've always been this way, as though you were born without edges, as though you never bit back. But there are days when the sun warms your skin, and the younger ones gather at your feet, asking for stories. You tell them of kings who buried their teeth with gold, of gods who swallowed stars and spat fire. You tell them of the pain, of the laughter that came after dot, and when they laugh at you, with you, you smile, gummy and full, because a toothless laugh is still a laugh. It is a song that needs no sharpness, a wind that doesn't cut, just breath and memory, and the courage to sing without armor. The necropolis lies beyond the olive groves, nestled in the dry hills like a city built of silence. There are no voices here, only the hush of wind through mausoleum cracks, the call of crows circling overhead, the soft groan of earth settling over forgotten names. This is where you work now, not as a healer, not as a warrior, as a cleaner. Of bones you carry no blade, no tool of war, just a bowl of lime water, a brush of stiff boar hairs, and time. The skulls arrive wrapped in cloth, bundled in straw, sometimes sealed in wooden boxes with offerings tucked between the ribs. You unwrap them slowly, reverently. Death demands slowness. The hands that once tore meat, the lips that once kissed, are gone. But the teeth remain, always. The teeth remain. They jut from crumbling gums like monuments. Some are ground flat, worn, down by years of chewing stone-laced grain. Others are jagged, broken from violence. A few are nearly perfect, ivory smooth, untouched by time. You begin to learn their stories, not from inscriptions, but from enamel. A woman's skull, delicate and narrow, with two missing inside. You brush away the dust and find the sockets healed over. She lived without them. You imagine her smile, gap-toothed, laughing in the sun. A fisherman's jaw with every molar cracked clean through. Salt water, tough sinew, a life spent fighting. Nets and storms. One child's skull is the hardest. Tiny, fragile, the milk teeth still fixed in place. Some yet to emerge, a whole life that never learned to speak fully. You sit with it longer than you need to. You hum softly, brushing in circles, as though the child might still hear you. Some mouths tell stories of hunger, teeth rotted from within, hollow as reeds. Others speak of desperation, grooves where twine had been used to bind false teeth in place. scraps of bronze wire wedged into sockets. One skull arrives with a coin still clutched between the teeth, an offering for the ferryman, or perhaps just the only possession they could not part with. You learn to read pain in the way others read scripture, not in words. In absence, a missing jawbone, a fractured root, a molar split to the nerve. You begin to see that the history of suffering is written most clearly in mouths. The body may decay, but the teeth resist, stubborn as regret, eternal as memory. They survive fire, flood, burial. They outlast names. Some evenings, you line them up, the skulls across the stone table, just to look at them side by side. You imagine the chorus of voices they once formed, the accents, the laughter, the screams, all of them gone now, all. That's left is the shape of their ache. The others in the necropolis avoid your room. They say it is unnerving, all those mouths open, as if waiting to speak. You do not mind. You listen for them. Sometimes you dream of them whispering, there, breath made of dust and forgotten lullabies. You take care with each one. You clean them gently. You speak their stories aloud, even if you must invent them. A kindness, a final act of witness. One day a body arrives in a carved cedar box. The teeth are polished, pristine. You marvel at them, bright as river stones. Almost unnatural. A royal, perhaps, or someone who lived far from hunger and grief. But even in this perfection, you sense distance. You wonder if the lack of pain means the absence of story. You return to your work. You lift another skull. The jaw is warped. The molars crumbled. The tongue long vanished. And yet here is truth. Here is the music of living carved into every ridge and crack. You hold it gently. You brush it clean. And in that moment, surrounded by the mouths of the dead, you feel something deeper than sorrow. You feel their persistence, a defiance of silence, a promise that even pain can outlast death. Etched in bone, and remembered in hands like yours, the road curls like a ribbon of dust between rice paddies and bamboo groves, a quiet path etched in the green heart of ancient China. The wind carries the scent of warm earth and cooking oil, the song of distant birds, the rustle of silk sleeves brushing against thigh-high grasses. You are far now from stone cities and bone forges, far from bloodied pliers and whispered chants. And yet the pain has returned. It hides behind your right molar, this time a blooming pressure. Subtle at first, then sharper, sharper, until even the softest food tastes of iron. Your cheek is warm to the touch. Swollen, you try the old herbs again. The rinse is a sliver of bark tucked between tooth and gum, but nothing softens it. You wake in the night with your jaw clenched, so tight your ears ring. They say there is a woman in the mountains who heals without cutting. No hooks, no blades, just needles and silence, you find. Her home nested at the edge of a mistrapped village, built from dark wood, its doors carved with cranes and plum blossoms. Wind chimes of bone and shell clink softly in the doorway. She emerges barefoot, wrapped in robes the color of morning. Fog, her eyes sharp as river glass. She does not ask what hurts. She sees it in your gait, your drawn face, the way your palm lingers near your cheek. She leads you inside. The room smells of ginger and smoke. She sets a basin before you, filled with warm water steeped in camphor and green tea. You soak your hands, your feet. Steam rises around your face. The pain dulls. Not gone, just distant, as if remembered rather than lived. You lie on a woven mat, she begins. Her hands are light, cool, precise. The needles are slender, almost weightless, barely the thickness of a hair. She taps one into the crook of your wrist, another into the top of your foot, one more near the temple. You feel nothing at first. No pain, no pressure, just stillness. Then something shifts. It begins as a warmth in your fingers, a strange release behind your shoulder, a breath that suddenly feels fuller. The ache in your jaw doesn't vanish. It spreads, loosening like ice thawing under early spring sun. She places one final needle behind your earlobe, so gently it feels like a whisper. You exhale without knowing you are holding breath. Outside, a rooster calls. A river murmurs. Nearby, bamboo creaks in the wind. She leaves you in silence. You lie there, feeling your body rearrange itself, not through force, but through allowance. The pain is not defeated. It is seen, shifted, allowed to drain through unseen channels. You do not understand it, but you do not question it. When she returns, she removes the needles with care, one by one, like plucking stars from the sky. You sit up slowly. Your jaw still aches, but less. The pain has become background noise, no longer the loudest voice in the room. She hands you a cup of hot water. No words, only a nod. You sip, later. As dusk slips down the mountainside, you sit outside her home, watching the lanterns flicker to life across the valley. The wind brushes your cheek, for the first time in days. It doesn't sting. The healer sits beside you, quiet. You glance at her and ask, "How did you know where to place them?" She smiles. The tooth is not just in the mouth. You don't understand. Not fully, but something inside you softens. That night, you sleep beneath mosquito netting, with a poultice of crushed lotus pressed gently to your face. The pain is not gone, but it no longer commands you. It has been made smaller, not by violence, but by care, and in the hush between pulses, you begin to dream of healing that does not hurt. The mountains are behind you now. In their place, a vast, breathless sky. The air is thinner here, and cleaner, and full of strange voices that rise with the wind like the cries of forgotten spirits. You have come to the high Andes, where the clouds wrap the peaks like shawls, and healing is sung, not spoken. Your jaw aches again. It is a familiar rhythm now, like the tolling of a bell in the bones, dull, constant, and laced with the memory of every previous pain. The cold does not help. The air is so dry that even your breath feels sharp. At night, your gums throb. In the morning, you wake with blood on your tongue. You've wrapped your face in wool, chewed coca leaves until your mouth numbed, whispered old prayers from older lands, but the pain remains, quiet and loyal. They take you to the shaman at dawn. She lives near a lake that reflects the sky with eerie stillness. A pool of glass surrounded by rocks painted in white pigment and ashes. Her hut is built from reeds and earth, low to the ground, warm inside. She greets you without words, only with a humming sound, low and rhythmic, like a lullaby shaped from thunder. You sit. The floor is covered in llama skins, the scent of wood smoke heavy in the air. She places a bowl of salt near your feet, another of ash, a third of something green, crushed leaves mixed with resin. She does not ask where the pain lives. She already knows. She lifts a handful of salt and tosses it into the fire. A sharp hiss, a cloud of smoke. She begins to sing, not in your tongue, not in any tongue you've heard. It is a chant made of vowels and wind, of syllables carved by altitude and grief. She circles you slowly, scattering herbs onto the flames, brushing your face with feathers, pressing her fingers to your temples in time with the melody. You close your eyes, the pain sharpens, then drifts. You are floating, she presses something to your jaw, warm and pulsing. You open your eyes. It is a pouch of smoked coca leaves and clay bound with sinew and red thread. She ties it gently round your head, anchoring it beneath your chin. The warmth seeps in slowly, dulling the ache from the outside inward. She continues to sing. Her voice rises and falls like the wind over stone. You feel your heartbeat slow, your breathing deepen. The pain becomes something else, a guest in the room, not a master. You listen not just with your ears, but with your nerves. The song enters your bones. At one point, you begin to cry. Quiet, tears, no sobs, no trembling, just the release of something you didn't know you'd been holding. The shaman kneels beside you and rests a hand on your shoulder. Pain that is held becomes poison. She says softly, in words you somehow understand. Pain that is sung becomes story. You nod. She offers you a drink, warm, bitter, smoky. You sip it slowly, each swallow softening the fire in your gums. Outside, the sky begins to change, bleeding orange along the peaks. The lake reflects it all. You watch, still cradled in the song. When the ritual ends, she removes the pouch. The pain is still there, faintly but different, loosened, named. You sleep that night on the floor of her hut, wrapped in warmth and silence. The fire crackles softly, the mountains hum, and somewhere in your jaw the ache continues, but quieter now, as if listening. You dream of salt, of smoke, of a song that holds pain gently in its arms and asks it to stay, just long enough to be understood. The rain falls in sheets that night, not gentle but insistent, drumming on clay roofs and soaking the earth into black, sucking mud. Thunder growls low in the distance, a warning that feels personal. You lie on your back in the corner of a darkened hut, jaw clenched, fever boiling behind your eyes. The ache is no longer a whisper or a pulse. It is a scream, constant, feral, consuming. The abscess has burst. You taste it before you feel it, a rush of bitterness, foul and metallic, flooding the back of your throat. Your face is hot, swollen to the temple, your right eye barely open. When you try to sit up, the world tilts. The fever has carved hollows into your limbs. Your breath is short, shallow. You are dying. The thought lands not like panic, but like snow, soft, cold, inevitable. You stagger to your feet, barefoot, wrapped in a damp wool cloak. Every step is agony. Your vision blurs. Your legs fail twice. Before you reach the road, mud swallows your heels. Wind howls through the trees. You follow the flickering orange glow in the distance. A forge, you hope, or a fire, or someone. You find him in a lean-to behind the butcher's stall. A man with soot on his hands and a scar down his cheek. You've heard of him, not a doctor, not a healer, just a man with iron and a reputation for doing what others won't. He doesn't ask questions. He takes one look at your face and pulls back the flap of oiled cloth over the work table. You sit. The world tilts again. You cling to the edge of the bench with trembling fingers. His tools are already heating. A small blade with a bone handle. A spoon-like hook, blackened with use. Cloth soaked in something bitter. He speaks once. Don't move. You nod. You can't speak. He grips your jaw in one hand, steady and cold, then inserts the blade near your molars with the other. The pain is immediate, white, blinding. You don't scream, not because you're brave, but because you can't find the air. He cuts deep. Fluid pours from the wound, hot and thick, filling your mouth with salt and decay. You gag. He turns your head and lets it drain into a basin. The relief is instantaneous and terrifying. The pressure is gone, but in its place is fire. He packs the cavity with moss soaked in liquor, then clamps your mouth shut with his palm. Breathe, he says. You do. For the first time in days, you do. He works quickly. His hands are sure. When the hook comes out, it carries a sliver of rotten root. When he wipes your face, he does so gently. You do not thank him. There is no space for words here. Only survival. You walk home in silence, rain washing blood from your chin, the taste of death still bitter on your tongue. Your cloak clings to your skin. The streets are empty. The world feels new, not healed but reset, bruised and quieter. Inside, you collapse onto the mat and drift into a sleep too deep for dreams. Your body shakes with the aftershock. Your breath rattles. But the pain no longer roars. It hums. When morning comes, the rain is gone. The sky is bruised with the color of ash and promise. You open your mouth, slowly. The wound aches, but there is space where there was once pressure, silence where there was once torment. The knife saved you, not through mercy, through precision, through force, and now, in the stillness of the dawn, you begin to wonder what remains of you after the pain has been cut away. The firewood crackles in the hearth, but your hands are steady now. There is no tremble as you reach for the iron pliers, no hesitation as you light the oil lamp. You are not the child who whimpered in his bed, nor the apprentice who bled on the stone table. You are something else now, someone shaped by pain, carved by fever, hardened by sleepless nights beside screaming mouths. You are the one they come to. You are the drawer of teeth. They call you ashen. Not for your hair, still dark, still thick, but for your eyes, for the way they do not flinch, for the way you watch pain, the way others watch storms, with respect, but not fear. You work in a shed on the village's edge. Low roof, earthen floor, shelves filled with linen and salt, a table smoothed by elbows and tears. You keep your tools in a box of cedar and bone. You've cleaned them with wine and fire, sharpened them by hand. The old blacksmith's gift still rests at the bottom, his original tongs, blackened with time. Your patients come quietly. A farmer whose mullah has split in half. A mother who cannot nurse because of the rot in her jaw. A boy who has not spoken in 3 days for fear that opening his mouth might kill him. They come to you because you do not ask questions. You sing instead, softly, low and slow, an old tune, wordless, from your childhood, half lullaby, half prayer, not for the gods. For the patient, you do not offer comfort, you offer stillness, certainty. Your hands are clean, your tools are hot, your silence is steady. You do not promise healing, you promise the end of the worst. One man vomits when you pull the tooth. You clean it from the floor and say nothing. Another sobs in your arms afterward, trembling like a leaf. You hold him until the storm passes. A girl bites through her own tongue before you reach the root. You rinse the blood, wrap her mouth, and sit beside her until she sleeps. You know their names. You forget them anyway. You remember their eyes instead, what they looked like when the pain left. One night, a stranger comes to your door, a traveler, skin darkened by wind and distance. He carries a pouch of silver and a face swollen with infection. He does not speak your language, but pain is its own dialect. You gesture. He sits. You light the lamp. He points to the right side of his mouth. You nod. You pack his cheek with gauze, bind his hands with linen, and hum. When it's done, he bows, leaves without a word. You never see him again. Some say you've lost your soul, that drawing too many teeth takes more than it gives, that each scream etches something into you, that the fire in your eyes is from the forge of pain, not from light. You disagree. You have not lost your soul. You have shared it. Each time someone leaves your table, breathing softer, walking lighter, sleeping, again, you give a piece of yourself. You trade it willingly. The pain never fully leaves you. Of course, some nights you wake to a dull throb in your own jaw, a memory, not a wound. You press your fingers to your cheek, and the ache reminds you of who you are. Not a healer, not really a witness, a companion, a knife in the dark that cuts cleanly, then sings you to sleep. You are not loved, not feared, not praised, but they come to you. They always come, and when they do, you open your door, you light the lamp, and you draw another tooth. The afternoon sun glints off parchment and polished brass. You sit in the corner of a quiet room, its walls lined with scrolls and the scent of ink and beeswax. The floor is swept, the windows open. The air carries no blood, no soot, no moaning. Only murmurs, gentle voices of students gathered around a central table, heads bent over diagrams and long Latin names. You are older now, not frail, not yet, but slowed. The pain has long since left your own mouth, leaving behind an empty space that hums when you speak. You've drawn more teeth than you can count, held more faces in your hands than you can remember. You've seen the scream of agony more often than the sunrise. But here, the pain is studied, measured, labeled that you came to Alexandria out of curiosity, not hope. You'd heard whispers of a library where the body was not just opened, but understood. And one morning, you packed your tools and set out, not to pull, but to listen. Now you sit beside a young student named Caius. His fingers are ink-stained, his robe too fine for blood. He holds a scroll with one hand and traces a tooth with the other, a perfect drawing, shaded and notated, each root labeled with Greek script. He reads aloud from Galen's writings, words like nerve, pulp, mandible. You recognize the shapes of the words, but not their meanings. You say the pain starts in the jaw, he says, but the tooth itself has no feeling. It's the nerves around it, the connection to the skull. You blink. You had never thought of the skull as something alive. Caius turns the scroll toward you. See, here's the canal, the root. When infection sets in, it travels down this path, into the bone, into the blood. You lean forward, slowly. There it is. Ink on parchment. The same agony you've felt, you've caused. You've tried to silence, now drawn with delicacy, explained with patience. He tells you of treatments that do not begin with pliers, poultices that draw infection outward, salves made of vinegar, and alum, bandages soaked in poppy milk to dull the nerves before extraction. He speaks of hygiene, of heat-sterilized tools, of sugar as a poison and salt as a bomb. You listen, not as a skeptic, as a student. There's a word he uses, preservation, the idea that a tooth might be saved, restored, not torn from the bone, but filled, capped, sealed. You shake your head. Impossible, you whisper. He smiles. Not yet. But one day, you say nothing. You were thinking of all the mouths you've known. The ones you burned, sliced, yanked. The ones that never had a chance to heal. You wonder, if you had known these things, would you have changed? Or would the pain still have come? Caius offers you a small case. Inside, a needle with a tiny curve, a pair of tweezers, a vial of ground myrrh and resin. These are new, he says, delicate, meant for precision. You hold them in your hand, lighter than the blacksmith's tongs, gentler, like holding a feather after a lifetime of stones. He says, there will be no more screaming. That's the goal. You nod. Not because you believe. Because you want to. You leave the room before dusk. The sky over Alexandria is washed with gold. Sailcloth flaps in the harbor. You walk slowly, the case in your hand, your thoughts full of blood and scrolls. Back at your room, you set your old tools beside the new ones. Iron, bronze, brass, and something in between. You light a lamp and sit at the table. You begin to write, not stories, not screams, just memories of the first time you felt pain, of the first time you gave it, of the girl who died, of the man who wept, of the mouths that opened like wounds and closed again in silence. You write because you want it remembered, because one day someone may open a scroll and see your name beside a tooth. Not as a villain, not as a savior, just as someone who pulled pain out of people and made space for something softer. The child sits by the hearth, legs tucked beneath her, face half lit by firelight. Her eyes are wide, not from fear, but wonder. The kind of silence that only children possess when they know a story is about to begin. You sit across from her, wrapped in a worn wool cloak, your fingers curled loosely around a carved wooden cup. The years have softened your limbs, but not your mind. And tonight, the ache is not in your jaw, but in memory. She winces as she chews, pressing her palm to her cheek. You know that look, that tilt of the head, that quiet pause in chewing. You've seen it on 1,000 faces, felt it in your own bones. A new tooth coming in, perhaps too crowded, too stubborn, and already claiming its place in pain. You smile, she does not. It hurts, she whispers. You nod slowly. Yes, you reply. It will. There is no promise of ease. You no longer believe in painless living, but you also know what comes after. And that, perhaps, is the story worth telling. You set your cup down and reach into the wooden chest. By your side, wrapped in linen, soft with age, is your satchel. You open it gently. The tools are gone. You gave them away long ago. But something remains. The pouch of herbs, dried now to brittle flakes. The brass hook, dull and forgotten. And the tooth. Not just any tooth. Yours, the one that started it all. You place it in her hand. It's small, yellowed, smoothed by years of being handled and remembered. This, you say, once lived inside me. It ached for days, then weeks. I thought it would never end. She frowns. What happened? You lean back against the wall. The fire warming one side of your face. A man with iron pulled it from me on a rainy night. I screamed so hard I forgot my name. She stares at the tooth, brow furrowed. Did it help, you think? It helped me understand, you say. She looks up. Understand what? That pain doesn't always want to stay. Sometimes it just needs a way out. She nods, solemn in the way only a child can be. You see her trying not to cry. You do not stop her. Instead, you sing, a low hum, an old melody. One from a temple courtyard, from the forge, from a smoky hut high in the mountains. You have carried that song across centuries of pain. Now it lives in your breath, soft and cracked, but still whole. She leans against you. You hold her close. The fire crackles. Shadows dance. The tooth rests in her palm like a pebble smoothed by 1,000 rivers. She will not need the knife. Not tonight, not tomorrow. The pain will pass. The tooth will fall, and she will live. You watch her drift into sleep. Her cheek nestled against your chest. Her breath slow and even. The ache in your own bones fades into the warmth of her trust. For the first time in many years, you feel no need to be the healer, the drawer, the ashen man with iron hands. Tonight, you are simply a voice, a lap, a story, and a mouth remembered. Not for the pain it held, but for the way it learnt to let go. You lie beneath an open sky, the air still and thick with stars. No roof above you now, no fire crackling nearby. Just the breath of wind through reeds, and the long, gentle hush of a world that no longer needs your hands. The earth beneath you is warm from the day's sun, and your blanket, a simple one, worn and patched, smells faintly of lavender and wood smoke. You press your tongue to your gums out of habit, expecting the phantom pain. But there is none. Your mouth is empty now, smooth, quiet, not just of teeth, but of tension, that ancient coiled thread that lived in your jaw for so many years. Clenched in sleep, bitten through grief. Gone. You exhale slowly. You feel it in your chest, your limbs, your throat. This is not a night of healing that came long ago. This is something softer, a final turning inward, a settling, the pain left. You in pieces, bit by bit, through smoke, through blades, through tears and poppy and song. It taught you everything, how to listen, how to endure, how to touch another's face with steadier hands than your own pain ever offered you. Now, there is no one to pull, no one to guide. The tools have been passed on. The chant, remembered by others. The stories, whispered again by young voices in rooms where you once stood. You think of the first fire you sat beside in that small clay house, when your tooth throbbed and no one yet had names for it. You think of the woman with the charcoal, paste, and the boy with the bloodied jaw. You think of the forge, the battlefield, the mountain smoke, the breathless hum of bamboo leaves. You think of the child who slept in your arms and never woke, of the others who did, of all the mouths you met, all the mouths you held, and all the pain you carried for them now. There is only this, stillness. Your breath slows. The stars shift above you like flakes of silver adrift in velvet. Somewhere nearby, a night bird calls. The reeds rustle. A memory hums. The tune you sang to your patients, to yourself, through the years. You hum it once more, softly, as your eyelids begin to fall. Not a lullaby, a farewell. The ache that once lived in your jaw is not cured. It is survived, and in its place, a silence as pure as snow, as deep as sleep, as final as rest. As the last breath of pain fades into this night's quiet earth, thank you for walking this long path with me. If this journey moved you, I invite you to return, to remember with me, again and again, the human weight of forgotten lives. Subscribe if you wish, and sleep well as the final pain slips into the silence of sleep. I thank you for walking this path through history with me. If these stories touched something deep inside you, Return again, and together we'll wander through the soft, aching echoes of the past. Subscribe if you wish, and sleep gently tonight. Could you have endured the treatments they called cures? What part of this painful journey stayed with you the most? If you lived in ancient times, would you have trusted the barber, the priest, or the shaman?